All righty. So, guys, we've got Johnny Bouman giving a message here today on the junk knife page, page 3. In my opinion, the most important part of your manual. But John, he started with us last year. He started in, I think it was that December 26th through 28th training class. And John, as a senior in high school, sold over $1,000 per week for every week consecutively for 10 weeks plus to hit the K Club steak knife. So he had to do that, by the way, around school and around his baseball season. Sold 17K in his first campaign 1. And of course, you know, that's just a great stat to know, because if John did that all around school and baseball, I'm sure he can also teach you guys how to do that around what you have going on as well. So Johnny, go ahead and take it away.
All right, wonderful. So to go ahead and get started, can you guys see my screen right now? The junk knives, why they suck and why that's important. Sweet. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. When I got started last December, I really didn't understand why this was an important part of the demonstration. I kind of rushed through it. And when I first started, my sales weren't as high, and it's because I didn't take my time working on junk knives. So what I'm gonna be doing today is talking about why the junk knives are so important, or at least junk knives themselves aren't important. They obviously suck, and why talking about why they suck is important. So the first thing I want to say is that everybody has a junk knife drawer, or everybody's seen one of these. There's a point in the presentation where you're like, okay, Mrs. Jones, this is the junk knife drawer. Do you recognize this? Have you seen this before? Did you grow up in a family with one of these? Everybody knows what the junk knife drawer is like. And so these knives, they're not so great. And the most important thing that you can do here is create a problem. People aren't gonna buy Cutco unless they find a problem with their knives. And so this is why this is important. So a couple ways that you're creating this problem is you're talking about these wooden knives, these wooden plastic handles. Now, what you're doing here is you're doing your best to establish credibility. Credibility as well is very important, because you're not just a kid in their dorm room selling knives, or somebody just at home selling knives. What you are is you're a professional. You're a knife expert. And this is one of the ways that you can really prove that to your customer, is by being really educated about these junk knives and what makes them not so great. So for some examples, and these are some things that I've recently or in the past figured out about junk knives, to establish some credibility, it's always great to have some facts. So I'm gonna share some facts with you. Wooden knives, they're extremely unsanitary. They're porous, which means that they're absorbing liquids, bacteria, greases, and germs. So with that, the FDA has banned wooden knives in restaurant kitchens in 38 states. Would you want to be cooking with a knife that isn't even good enough to cook in like a Waffle House kitchen? I don't think so. Another thing about these cruddy knives is that the University of Wisconsin, it did a study in the early 2000s, and it found more bacteria in the handle of a wooden knife than in a public restroom toilet. That's why I have a picture of this here. Can you think about that? Would you ever use like this toilet to prepare food with? I don't think so. So why would you use a wooden handled knife? Another thing about these junk knives is that they're a form of planned obsolescence. So obsolescence, that's the word. Think about iPhones. Every time there's a new iPhone that's coming out, the old ones seem to kind of decrease in quality a little bit. Maybe the charging goes down a little bit, or the apps don't work as fast. Apple actually faced a lawsuit about this, is because they want to make their older products not so great. So you have to keep buying the new ones. And that's what happens with your junk knives, because they're not as good. So another reason why it's so important to have a good junk knife part of your presentation is because it's like you're setting yourself up, you're throwing yourself an alley-oop to when you talk about the Cutco knives. You present the problem with the junk knives, that's the oop, and then you really dunk on your customer with the Cutco knives and how great they are. Now, there's one other thing about the junk knives that I really want to hit on, the part of the presentation. It's all about how you're expressing yourself. So some of you might have noticed how I was talking about the disgusting and gross bacteria that builds up and such. So I have a couple photos with you here, and I'd like you guys to shout out and share some of the expressions right here. So in this first photo, you can just unmute and say, what's the feeling I'm presenting here? What's the expression here?
I would say like disgusting.
Mm-hmm. I'm in disgust, and then that's because of the bacteria. You want to look disgusted because it's gross. And this second one, I'm kind of in shock, or I'm horrified. I'm scared of this plastic handle. I don't know if you can see, but this plastic handle, it's slippery when it's wet, guys. And think about a slip and slide. So that's plastic, and that's your hand, your wet hand, or like your wet body coming into contact with that slip and slide. It's slippery, it's sliding. You can hurt yourself. Guys, that's scary. Be scared of hurting yourself with this junk knife, because that can happen. And then when this works for positives too. When you're expressing yourself about the Cutco knives, you want to get really excited about it. You want to look happy like this. So this is actually a psychological fact. It's all about mirroring. If you are presenting an emotion and you're really showing it while you're talking about it, they're going to experience it in the same way. So these have been some of my main tips about the junk knife and why it's so important to talk about them. That's all I have for my presentation. But what I would like is if you guys can post some of your takeaways that you have in the chat, I'd really appreciate it.
Woo! Let's give John some snaps. Woo, woo, woo. Awesome. Great job, John. And I know we got some takeaways to share. And if you're watching this recording, definitely share some takeaways in the comment section on this video.